Today, I am talking to Joy Karambu from Kenya, who is one of our F-1 nurses currently working in Aiken. Joy, tell us how long you've been an Interstaff nurse.
I have been with Interstaff for 2 years, almost 2 years working, but I signed up my contract 2 years, 2 days ago. So I started working for Interstaff in October 2021, and it's 2 years. It's been a great journey, and I'm grateful.
You have a pretty interesting story about how you started with us. Can you share that?
Oh, yes. I still think about this and get goosebumps sometimes. So, for those of you that don't know, like I was an international student before I started working as a nurse in the US. And part of the process after you graduate from nursing school, you have to be sponsored by an employer and to be able to maintain your status. I found that most of the hospitals were not willing to hire F-1 student because you get OPT, which is only valid for a year. So they were very hesitant to do that, given that I was a new grad, and new graduates get like at least 3 years of orientation once they graduate. So everybody was like, it's not worth it to train you for 3 months and you're only gonna stay for 9 more months after that. So I was on the process of finding a hospital that will uh, sponsor me. That process took a long time because I graduated in May of 2021. I did my NCLEX sometime that summer. I was still looking for a job. And once you get your OPT, you have like 60 days period to get a job. If you don't have one, you have to go back to Kenya. Long story short, I was still trying to figure out who can like sponsor a visa for me. And it was a Friday. I was supposed to have had a job by this time or leave on Monday. So it was a lot of tears looking and kind of like seeing my dream, crash. But thankfully, one of my family friends, people that have been with me through the process, the pain and the challenges along the way, they knew somebody that works for Interstaff, and that is Madison. And I received a phone call on a Friday. I had been crying like the night before. So at this time, I was like, yeah, nothing is going to work. Nobody's going to, hire me at this point. But he says, I have somebody that I'm going to put on the phone for you. I think they'll be willing to hire you. And I was like, are you serious? Or is this just one more thing that I'm going to do? And then I'm still going to pack my stuff and leave on Monday. So yeah, it's worth a try. So anyway, we we do a phone call with Madison and Uncle Jason that Friday, and I was so down. He was the one asking all the questions on my behalf. And believe it or not, Interstaff worked above and beyond. And by that Monday, I signed up my contract with them. They answered any questions that I had through the weekend. And here we are. I was their first in OPT nurse, F1 nurse, and still like asking Madison, like, is there anything else we need to do? Because I don't want to stay and then come back months later and don't get my green card because we did this so quickly. And I remember I said at the beginning of this call, trust the process. And my family and everyone was like, just trust the process. And I remember Sylvie multiple times because, I had questions. I was, apprehensive about the process at the beginning, given that I was so close to being done. I kept asking a question and she kept saying back to me, trust the process. And, it got to the point where, this is working good, everything, like I was connected with the lawyer and everything was going good. So I had no reason not to trust the process. And long story short, I now have my green card. I'm working in a facility, in a unit that I actually love. I have found my passion in nursing, so I could not be more thankful, you know.
I
Yeah.
love hearing that story so much. It wasn't long ago that you shared that story with me. And I just love the way that we were connected with you and the way that Madison scrambled to figure out a way to get you to work. I think we're doing this video for Culture Week, and one of our videos is adaptability. And it showed so much about adaptability, both on your part and on Madison's part, to just be willing to figure things out and work together to get you to work. And so I just really appreciate you sharing that story and you trusting us with this process. And so I'm thankful we've gotten to work with you for the past 2 years and that I've gotten to know you recently.
Yeah.
So one other value that I've kind of been thinking about, I feel like you have such a unique story you started in med surg, right? And then you're now working on a psych unit.
Yes, that's correct.
I know I have this conversation I have had this conversation several times with nurses recently of they're concerned they're going to get stuck in med surg, and they don't necessarily, they want to start in a different unit. Can you talk a little bit about how you made that transition and what that's looked like for you?
Back in nursing school, you have to do like a semester of practicum. And I had, a strong desire to do oncology. So my practicum was in oncology. And I learned a lot about it was oncology, but also kind of med surg too, because you're doing a lot of medications, um, treating infections, because in most cases, cancer patients are prone to infections.
Yeah.
And that's why I initially wanted to work before I joined Interstaff. And when I interviewed with my hospital here in Haken, my manager was like, on this floor, we also do a little bit of oncology. And I was like, okay. But then, you need to be certified to be able to hang chemo and things like that. And she said after a year, you'll be able to do that. And I think this sounds like a good transition, like a good place to start. And I knew too, like going through nursing school as a COVID, I was in school during COVID, like the first semester, my second semester, I was only able to do like clinical the first semester without any interruptions, but the second semester, like I never got some of my clinicals because of COVID. And this is when it was all happening. So I knew I wanted to be in a unit where I can continue to learn and grow as a nurse, like pack my skills. And that was med-surg for me. It was not an easy transition, obviously, and I'm sure not just me, people that we went to school with, they felt the same. But looking back, it was a great time for my career. Like I learned time management, I learned the skills, things that I still use to this day in psych.
Yeah.
So it was challenging, but so much worth it. I'm glad I just did not go straight to, psych or something else. And psych is something that came, I just shadowed before I moved and found out that I actually do like this. Because I never had a psych clinical in nursing school, again, because of COVID. So and one thing I like about Interstaff in general, I remember like during my first year when, you know, it was a little bit challenging and leaning on Interstaff and other nurses. They're like, just try other things, see maybe if there's something else you can do.
Mhm.
And just having that option to try out other units and maybe find your niche was very helpful for me. And for people out there, the F1 students, new grads, people that don't, because as an international student, so you really come out of nursing school without any experience because there are limitations. Sometimes you're not able to work as a CNA because you're not going to school as a CNA. So most likely you'll come out of nursing school without any work experience in the field. So just be open to trying other things because Interstaff offers that opportunity, and nursing profession in general, there's so much you can do with your degree.
I love your mindset on that, just the way that you view those experiences, because I think you could have viewed it very much so as like a time that you just had to get through, but I love that you see the growth and the way that that trained you. Another one of our values is growth mindset, and I feel like you have really displayed that. It's something, our values are what we as an internal team really try to live out, but I see so much of it in our nurses as well. So I love that you have that attitude of growth and wanting to always be learning. I know you gave a little bit of advice, but do you have any other advice to a new grad, an international student who studied in the US, who is just getting started on their journey in a US hospital?
I think it's a lot. And so for me, I was in this country for over 5 years when I signed up a contract with Interstaff. And it kind of surprised me how hard the move, like leaving your community, places you're used to, was gonna be. And, during that time, I was kind of hard on myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And, the times I was shy, did not really take the time to get to know people. I'm doing that now just because my experience in Nation, I wanted to be a memorable experience, like get the
Yeah.
people that I'm watching with during this season of my life, all the co-workers, both from the hospital side and interstaff, just get to know people because this is, like you said, I've grown so much just looking back on that experience. So for my fellow F1 students out there, when you come, just be open to getting to know people, even if you feel like you've been there for a while. Just continue exploring and being adventurous, engage with other people from other cultures, and even because depending on where you go in America too, it's gonna be different. Just embrace that experience. And I like to grow, like every opportunity is for me is a experience. So you end up learning things about you did not even know about yourself, and also it makes your um deployment a lot smoother. You will rely on these new people like interstaff. If you're having if watch nursing, every day is different. Some days are better than others. Maybe you'll have a community to share with what's going on, and maybe they've gone through that. There are three other F1 students here, and whenever we talk, we relate on so many things.
Yeah.
Even though we've been here for a while, and just lean on those um communities, like both the local nurses and the international nurses,
Yeah.
and have fun.
I love that advice. That's great. Um, You mentioned that there are several other F1s that are a part of your community there in Aiken. Are there other Kenyan nurses that you have found?
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
want to talk a little
Um,
bit about that, or something that you like? Do you celebrate your Kenyan culture together with food or traditions or anything?
with food to an extent, like, because I know I might have said this to you or maybe to somebody else. You can stop me if I did. One thing I've learned about nurses in America, it's so hard to schedule something like events with them. But whenever we do get like same days off, we do things, like share food. Like one of the nurses that was here, she was not F1, but she's Kenyan. Like
Mhm.
we tried different stuff together, and there's some African shops that we go to, and they carry our snacks, our food, and we really bond on that. Like even
Yeah,
something simple as speaking our language whenever we hang out together, it really helps in times where we're a little bit homesick, because it still happens many years down the line. It's
yeah,
still um hard some days when it's during the holidays, let's say Christmas, it's coming up, and with your family. So we like food wise, yes, if it's a holiday and we're both not working, we try to do something. I want to be able to do a little bit more. It's Mashujaa Day actually in Kenya today. So
oh,
I'll reach out to a few Kenyans in town and, have a chat if they're not working tonight, or maybe go grab something to celebrate. But on my previous unit, there are a few Kenyans working there, and one of the Kenyans is still there. I was working day shift at the time. Since I moved to night shift, this particular Kenyan is still there. And I go on my breaks whenever I'm working, if she's there, and just go say hi for a little bit and then go back. And it just gives me so much energy, just knowing that I have people like I know. If I have a question about, what phone numbers should I call? I call over there and they are able to help me. So I've really used the connections, both interstaff and um, the local nurses, to my advantage. You
yeah,
never know when you need somebody. I thought,
yeah.
I'm leaving med-surg, I will not be able to talk to, I will not be interacting with them as much, but I talk to them quite a bit. Sometimes we'll be missing some supplies and I'll run back there and get something.
I love that you've prioritized that connection. That
Yeah.
is that connection to home. I feel like is really helpful when you are lonely, and it's a hard journey and hard to be away, especially on holidays. So I'm glad you found some people to share that with. Um, just one final question for you. What is your favorite thing about the Kenyan culture?
Oh, a favorite thing. Well, I would say I realize it's 11:30, almost lunchtime for Joy, but Kenyan food,
Mm.
it's just like sometimes I have dreams about like my favorite Kenyan food.
Oh, what are your favorite Kenyan foods?
I love goat for some reason, like goat
Okay.
meat.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my mom last week and I was just telling her how much I miss eating goat meat. And I was like, Mom, can you, next time I come home, just buy a full goat that I can eat the whole time? So I like the Kenyan food. On top of that, I just like the diversity of the Kenyan um, people. Like we have different tribes, each tribe, they speak their own language, their traditions and things like that. And we're very open to everyone's practices and we embrace all that together. And you know, obviously sometimes tribalism can be an issue, but for the most part, we do a great job as Kenyans to just embrace where everyone is from. People, everybody will have their own accent, even in Kenya, and we value and appreciate that. And it's something, growing up in Kenya where I hear 1,000, languages, a
Mhm.
thousand meaning maybe over 50. But coming to the US, where in most cases, I'm the only person with an accent, and realizing that sometimes that can be a good thing, other times, not a good thing. Just growing up in a place where we're blessed called like accents and different languages has helped me to also embrace this experience in America. Just, it's okay. I have an accent. Ask me to speak back if I can. And especially in nursing where you're doing a lot of interactions with your
Yeah.
patients, family members, doctors, fellow nurses. So it has, been an encouraging factor. And like, it's okay. Yeah, I have an accent, but actually, it can also be an opportunity to teach people. I
Mhm.
have an accent because I speak two other languages, so they
Yeah.
influence my English a little bit.
Really beautiful. I love hearing just the way all of the tribes live in harmony. And I feel like that's something that we need to learn from um, in the US and many parts of the world. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Any last minute thoughts before we sign off?
Uh, just trust the process.
That's a good,
For, nurses in Kenya, in the Philippines, in Af- the rest of the African continent, other parts of the world, if you're considering to sign up for a contract, and consider choosing Interstaff. Because they'll always be there. If you text somebody, if you want to talk to somebody, if you have concerns, they will address them for you. That does not always come easy. Some of the other agencies will sign the contract, will try to reach out to talk to somebody, they will not be there. So if you value the support and being connected with your employer, I'll encourage you to consider Interstaff. And also because we have great nurses working for Interstaff.
yes.
It's a great community.
Yeah. I appreciate
Yeah.
you saying that. That's certainly what we're going for. We always want our nurses to feel that support and connection. And so I'm glad that has been your experience with Interstaff. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I appreciate talking to you today and getting to share a little bit more about your experience as an F1 and about Kenyan culture.